Hey everybody, and welcome to DirectX 11 tutorial 63. In this tutorial we are going to look at using the Stencil Buffer with transparency. So we are going to mask this object, which, the actual texture is a quad, but the area that we want to mask is not a quad. All of these pixels that appear white are actually transparent. They have an alpha value of 0. So what we can do is we can utilize something called discard in the pixel shader. So first, let's go and update for our sprite. Let's use this new circle sprite. Alright, so where we are initializing the sprite, we're going to use this new circle.png, and we are going to revert where we were setting the scale and making it small. So just keep it at 256 by 256, and let's set it back to the center of the screen. Alright, so now we are positioning it at the center of the screen. So what we will have to do is we will have to create a new pixel shader for discarding. So how we will do this is we will create a new item. We'll call it Pixel Shader 2D Discard, I guess. That'll work for now. .hlsl. Let's go to the properties and make sure we have Shader Model 5, and for the shader type, Pixel Shader. Press OK. We're going to copy what we had in our 2D pixel shader to this one. Now, one difference is we're going to say if the sample color, IntelliSense isn't working, but if we're going to check if the alpha value is less than 25%, then we're going to discard this pixel. So when it discards, it is not drawn, and we just skip out of here. Now we need to set up this new pixel shader. Let's go to the graphics header. We're going to create a new pixel shader object for 2D discard. Now let's go to where we are initializing these in the graphics CPP. So after we initialize the 2D pixel shader, we will initialize the 2D discard pixel shader. And then when we go to draw this, let's see, got to go back towards the top where we were drawing the sprite. Two things. First, I'm going to remove that red text thing we did in the last tutorial, because now we're moving the mask back to the center of the screen. I'm going to cut the code where we were drawing the sprite, go back up, and before we draw our 3D stuff, we will put this sprite mask, and what we are going to do is change the pixel shader to our new pixel shader 2D discard.get. For some reason, IntelliSense has a problem with this. Oh, that's the wrong argument. That goes right here, and the second argument should be null. Alright, so if we take a look at this, let's see what we get. Alright, so the first thing we'll notice is that the circle is still moving. Let's go back to the engine CPP. I forgot to take out that code where we were moving the sprite. And now back in the graphics CPP. The next issue was, in the last tutorial, I had changed the 3D object to use the normal depth stencil state. We want it to use the one where the mask is applied. So let's give this another test. Alright, so you see now we are just masking with this circle. But there's one more problem here. And in the last tutorial, we went over how we could use a null pointer for the pixel shader to not actually draw the mask background. However, in this case, we need the pixel shader because that is how we are discarding the pixels that we don't want to mask over. So how would we address this? Well, what we can do, if we go back to the pixel shader You see, currently our pixel shader is returning a float 4, and the semantic we're using is SV target. So SV target is, the color that will be applied to that pixel when we link it like this. However, our pixel shader doesn't actually need to return a SV target. We could just have our pixel shader return void, have it not return anything, and take out the SV target semantic. And now what will happen is if a pixel is discarded, then that won't be updated, like for the stencil buffer. Otherwise, it will be updated. Now, though, the pixel will never be drawn. Even though that position is updated for this depth and stencil buffer, that specific pixel is never being drawn to since we're returning void. Let's give this another test, and we will see that now we just see our stencil mask and we don't see that blue background. Alright, so that concludes this tutorial. In the next tutorial, we will probably get into a little bit of cleanup. I wanted to implement a pipeline manager, and that way we wouldn't have to pass like the device and device context to all of our objects, because currently we have these huge initialized functions and it's kind of gross. But yeah, that is all that we are going to cover for this tutorial, and thanks for watching.